So welcome back friends to my tutorial. So today we're going to talk about data types in Kotlin. So it's more like knowing the fact. There is nothing special in this, so let's get started. So as you know, just like in Java, there are four basic data types: integer, float, string, and boolean. And in integer you have four parts like byte, short, int, and long, and each of them vary with the byte type and the range of values they can hold. So long can hold a much longer integer values than int. Short can hold a very short integer values, and by default when you declare a variable and initialize it with a value, the int data type is what it's usually created. And when you come to float has two types, float and double. So float are just the decimal values that we use as an input, and while creating float variables, make sure that we have a capital F at the end of values while assigning, and also double doesn't need that. And when we create a variable with a decimal value, the double data type is the default data type that is being assigned to variables. Then we have strings. So strings are like two parts, character and string. So character is a single letter value which is enclosed in a single quotation. Make sure that only single quotation works for character. When you assign a double quoted word to a character or a letter to a character, you get an error because double quotations are used only for assigning strings or highlighting strings. So, and single quotations are for characters in Kotlin. So make sure you follow that. And there is no default type, because whenever you create a variable with respect to the quotations you use, it might change with character and string. Also note that characters can have only one letter, strings have multiple letters, combinations of them. And boolean data type, it just has two values, true or false. Make sure the T is not capital and F is not capital. Okay, so now let's look into the another part. In Java, the numbers are primitives, so the variables hold the actual number itself, but that's not the case in Kotlin. In Kotlin, numbers are objects, and the variables doesn't hold the object but has a reference to the object. So let's say I'm creating a variable a of integer type with value 5. So what happens in the background is an object of integer type with a value 5 is created, and the variable a creates a reference link to the object of integer type with a value. So simply it means that variable a only has a reference to the value but not the actual value itself. So let's see what happens when I change the value. So the variable a has value 5 and I'm reassigning it with a newer value of 3. So what happens is that the reference link of object 5 is broke or is replaced with a newer object, and the variable a holds the reference link to the object with a value 3. So this is what happens when I'm reassigning my value. So let's see what happens when I'm reassigning another variable to a already existing variable. So let's say I'm creating a new variable here, variable b, and assigning variable a to variable b. So what happened is that the variable b actually should get the value of 5, but theoretically it's like the variable b just shares the reference link of the object with value 5. So basically both the variables share the common reference link for the object with value 5. So that's it, guys. Now let's go to the editor and look all of this in practical. Okay friends, now let's do something from what we have learned. So as you know how to create a variable, I'm just gonna do that once more so that you can make sure to do with other things. So if I want specifically mention that my variable should be a integer, I'll just go with int and type in a value. And if I want my variable to be a boolean, I would say like truth of boolean type equal to true. Or if I want to create a float variable, yeah, I should do that. So k float equal to, make sure after the value you put have a capital F. Make sure you do this, because if I don't have a capital F, I get an error saying it's not a float value. So make sure you have a capital F. Or to have a double, so by default you have the double word, and don't use a capital F in doubles, just omit it, and it will be a double variable. Okay, so now let's check how to convert a variable from one data type to another data type. So let's create a variable I of long data type equal to, let's say, a value. Okay, yeah, and let's create another variable, say j, of int data type. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert the I data type into the I, which is a long data type, into a integer data type. So to do that, I dot to capital I and T. So this is the variable. So by converting this, the data type I changes into the data type of J, or it's more like, by doing this, the long converts to integer data type. Now let's print the values. Actually, there are some problems with this, because you know, the integer data types range is pretty smaller than the data range of long. So when I convert a long data type to an integer data type, I get some loss in my values. So I will make sure to show you guys that. Let's run this. Yeah, so as you can see, this is my first variable I with a data type long, and you can see it's pretty, the range or the length of my numbers is pretty high. When I convert it to an integer data type, you can see it just shortens and the value is completely different. So this is what happens if you try to convert a higher data type into a lower data type, like long to int or short to byte or int to byte. So make sure you never do such a mistake. But this is also helpful in some cases where let's say I want to create a variable, say float number equal to okay, let's make it a double. Oh, okay, by default it should be double, so I'm gonna say 0.45, and let's create a variable of integer type. So let's say int number, I will just explicitly put it as int so you guys. So equal to, I'm gonna change that value, float dot to int. Okay, so also we can just print the values here. So print ln float number and print ln int number. So let's run this. As you can see, the compiler automatically chops off the unwanted values from the data type. Actually, this is a float variable and this is an integer variable. As you can see, it takes only the integer part and leaves all the other part. So this is what happens, the type of losses we face whenever we try to convert. So make sure, this is kind of helpful, but still make sure you be careful when converting a variable from one data type to another data type. Okay, so this is how we convert, and you can convert any data types to another data types until it matches or it is acceptable by the compiler. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Please share, like and subscribe to my channel. So until next time, stay safe and see you guys.